In this example, we're going to we're going to do this first assignment here, write a Java program to prompt the user for a number of miles driven, the number of gallons of gas used, calculate the miles per gallon, format the MPG with 2 decimal points. So this example will use a scanner and we'll prompt for 2 pieces of data from the user. We'll collect those, we'll convert them into the appropriate data types, an integer for the miles driven, and a double for the number of gallons of gas used. We'll then use some math to calculate the miles per gallon, and then we'll use a printf statement to output the miles per gallon formatted to 2 decimal places. So let's go ahead and jump in and do this example. I'm using JDoodle to do this. You can, so we're just going to go ahead and start with a new Java program. I'm going to start with an example just because I get some of the boilerplate done for me. So we come in, so in our example, we always get a couple of statements here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete those and delete the comments. So now I'm going to need a scanner. So I need to do an import on my java.util.scanner. Okay. I'm going to name this, instead of calling it my class, I'm going to name it MPG calculator. Okay. And I have my public static void main already written for me. I kept the system.out.println because it'll just save me a little typing. First thing I want to do is create my scanner. Scanner sc equals new scanner system.in. So this will create a scanner that will read from the command line. Oops. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong key. So now I can come in and say, I have my scanner. Now I want to prompt for 2 pieces of information. I want to prompt for the number of miles driven, and then I want to prompt for the number of gallons purchased. So I'm going to use the system.out.println. How many miles did you drive? Okay, and I'm going to assume that this is an integer. So fix the spelling mistakes there. And then, so in order to get an integer, I use the scanner. I'm going to use the next line on the scanner to let the user type some data in and then press enter. And then I'm going to capture that as a string. Then I'm going to use the parse, the integer.parseInt to convert it to an integer value. And then we'll do the same to get the miles per gallon using a double value. So string input equals scanner.nextLine. I made a bunch of spelling mistakes there. Okay. And then we'll do the parse int miles equals integer dot parse int input. Okay, there we go. And so now I have prompted the user to enter the miles. I've let them type it in, and then I've converted that into an integer value. Let's go ahead and run this right now just to make sure that we haven't made any mistakes. We're not done yet, but we want to make sure we fix all the syntax errors we've made. And I have made an error here. So we can read this error over here. It says on line 6, on my MPG calculator.java line 6, I have an unclosed literal, which means I have too many double quotes here. So I just made a typing error there. So let's run that again. I just fixed that on line 6. I took out the double quote. I made another error. I misspelled scanner on line 5. So I go ahead and fix that. See line 5, Java line 5, it says cannot find symbol, and it's pointing at Sackner. That should be scanner. Okay, how many miles did you drive? 350. Okay, and that's the end of the program. We're not done with the program, but everything that we've written so far is syntactically correct and it's working the way it should be. So I always want to make sure that I'm typing a little bit of code and running the compiler, doing testing as I go, so that I don't want to write 15, 20, 30 lines of code and then have to come back and debug them all, because I'm going to make mistakes when I type. I'm gonna make spelling mistakes. So I'm going to miss parentheses. I'm going to make all those mistakes. So we want to make sure that we're running the code frequently to find those. Let's go ahead and do the second piece of the second prompt. How many gallons fuel did you purchase? Well, let's see, did you use? Okay. semicolon at the end. We can do the same thing. We're going to use the input variable again. We don't have to define it. Up here in line 7, we did string input equals scanner.next line. I don't need to use the string again because I've already defined input as a variable. So I can just use that input equals scanner.next line. And you saw in my case, I just copied it. I just highlighted it here. And then I hit Control C and then came down here and put Control V just to copy it. That just saves me a little bit of typing. Cut and paste is fine here if you want to use that. Just be careful that you are cutting and pasting the right things. So now I have input. I want this to be a double value. So I'm going to do double gallons equals double dot parse double. And this is going to be input. So now input will parse into a double value. Let's go ahead and run that, make sure that I didn't make any mistakes. Okay, compiles fine, 350. 12.3. Okay, that's the end of our program. I did misspell fuel here. So I'm going to come back up and fix my spelling mistake. Okay. Okay, so now we just do the last thing. We're going to do we're going to do some division to calculate the miles per gallon, and then we'll print out the answer. So the miles per gallon will be double. MPG equals miles divided by gallons. And then we'll print out a message. Now, to print it out, we want to format it to 2 decimal places for the miles per gallon. So we're going to use a printf statement to do that. So let's do system.out.printf. This is instead of print line. Printf stands for print format. And so the way we use print format is we have a string. The first argument of printf is a string. So it'll be enclosed in quotes, and it will be the data that we want to print onto the console. The following parameters of the printf statement will be all the variables that we want to go back and insert into the formatted print string. So in this case, we're just going to say the miles per gallon is, and then we're going to print the MPG value. So that's going to be a decimal value. So we're going to use the %f code. We can go back here to the slide deck for chapter 3, and we can see all the different printf codes that we can use. And here's an example of some printf statements that we can use to look at. We're going to use this one, %,.2f. This will produce a formatted floating value or double data type with rounded to 2 decimal points with 1,000 separator if it's relevant. Okay, that'll be the one we use most often, .2f. Okay, and then we want to put a new line at the end because we're using printf. Print line right here, like on line 9, when we use for these inputs, that always puts a new line in, so you can see we do the printout here for the prompt, and then the console goes to the next line. Printf does not implicitly have a new line at the end like println does. We're going to put one in. That's the %n value. Then the parameters we want to add are MPG. So if we do this, we should get the miles per gallon printed out with 2 decimal points. So let's run it and see. How many miles did you drive? 350. Use 12.3 gallons of fuel. Miles per gallon is 28.46. If you divide 350 by 12.3, you get 28.4 something, lots of numbers, right? So in this case, we're rounding it to 28.46, so we get a nice print value. Okay. You need to be careful when you're using these printf statements. If you were to use the wrong formatting code here, so for example, I'm using %,.2f to get a rounded and then giving it a double value MPG. That %f formatting code expects a double or a float to come in as the parameter. If I use the wrong code here, for example, if I use a D, this would be expecting an integer value. So if I run this, I'm going to get an error message when that code executes. It will compile just fine, but it will not print out correctly. We'll get an error when it goes to print. Okay. The error I get is an exception that says illegal format precision exception. Okay. And it says it's at, remember, we read these errors, we want to, when we read these exceptions, the interesting bits are always in the first line and the last line. So we read that the error type is java.util illegal format exception. And then it says at MPG calculator.main Java line 13. So we're right here in line 13. And we can see it's an illegal exception because I use a %d formatter like that, but I gave it a double value, so a floating type data. So %d only works on integers. So I have to change this back to %f. Okay. So if you get this exception, the illegal format exception, this means that you have used the incorrect formatting code in your printf statement for the data type that you provided. So now it should work. 350 miles, 12.3 gallons. Okay, so we fixed our error and our program is working. I'm going to remember to save this because I want to make sure that I'm saving my work along the way so that when I submit it, so always remember to click the save button as you're getting your work done.